Hey, tonight we're stepping into the ancient streets of Babylon, not through dusty textbooks or distant myths, but as if you were really there. You might think you know what daily life looked like in ancient Mesopotamia, but trust me, the truth is deeper, slower, and far more haunting than most people ever imagine. If you're into this kind of storytelling, a quick like or even a subscribe helps way more than you think. And I always love seeing where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is. It's incredible to watch this global community connect around stories that have shaped entire civilizations. So dim the lights and settle in, because tonight we're walking into Babylon and meeting the gods who were believed to watch you while you slept. You walk toward the eastern horizon, where the sky begins to blush with the pale light of dawn. The desert sand beneath your feet is cool, still untouched by the sun's heat. Before you rises the great city of Babylon, its walls stretching high and wide, built with sun-baked mud bricks and lined with guards who watch the surrounding land. You approach the outer gate slowly, where farmers with baskets of dates and barley wait their turn to enter. Some carry goats or sheep on short ropes. Others wear simple linen tunics, their feet dusty from long walks. No one seems hurried. The guards inspect each cart with brief nods and gestures, allowing the flow to continue uninterrupted. As you reach the gate, your eyes are drawn to the detail carved into the massive stone pillars. Lions march in relief along the walls, their paws firm, their jaws open mid-roar. Painted tiles, a deep cobalt blue, depict bulls and dragons, creatures sacred to the gods. The animals face forward in perfect rows, as if guiding you inward. The sounds of the waking city unfold gradually. A clay pot shatters somewhere in the distance. A vendor calls out softly, arranging his basket of onions and leeks. The hum of human voices begins to rise as shopkeepers open wooden shutters, children laugh from rooftops, and the first rays of light spill across the narrow stone roads. You walk deeper into the city, where straight streets intersect wide courtyards. Babylon is not a chaotic place. Everything is planned. The homes sit close together, some 2 or even 3 stories tall, with flat roofs supported by wooden beams. Most are made of mud brick, the color of river silt, and many have painted entryways, a soft blue or red, with protective symbols brushed onto lintels. A group of women gather near a well. They greet each other with nods and quiet chatter, lifting clay jars onto their shoulders. Water is drawn from the Euphrates, which winds through the heart of the city, offering life in its steady current. The water is divided by canals, some feeding small gardens that cling to the edges of homes. As you turn a corner, the Temple of Ishtar comes into view. It is smaller than the ziggurat, but no less imposing. The courtyard outside the temple is swept clean. A boy lights a line of small clay lamps one by one. Smoke from incense spirals upward into the morning air. You don't stop, but you glance inside. A priestess stands at the altar, silent and still, her hair wrapped in a linen band. She holds a bowl of dates and flowers, ready for the first offering. Further into the city, the streets grow busier. You pass a scribe's workshop. Thin wooden shelves hold rows of clay tablets. On a bench, a man etches cuneiform letters into wet clay with a reed stylus. A student stands beside him, reciting aloud, then correcting himself. His tone is slow, deliberate. The scent of fresh bread pulls you closer to a bakery. Inside, a young boy shapes flat loaves with his hands. His father stokes the fire of a rounded clay oven built into the wall. Ash settles in a fine layer across the floor, and a woman waits patiently with a small basket. You continue walking. Soon you reach one of the canals. Here, traders unload their goods, fabrics from distant lands, copper tools, lapis lazuli stones wrapped in cloth. Men speak different dialects, their voices marked by places beyond Babylon. An older merchant counts silver pieces from a leather pouch, weighing each transaction with care. As the sun climbs higher, shadows begin to retreat. You pass workers smoothing mud along walls, repairing a collapsed corner near a granary. Two boys carry a beam across a narrow alley. A potter stacks bowls outside his shop, each etched with simple patterns and glazes. You move westward toward the great ziggurat, Etemenanki, the towering structure dedicated to Marduk, king of the gods. The base is wide, built with thousands of bricks layered in steady succession. Stairs rise along the sides, leading to multiple terraces. You don't climb yet, but you pause near the plaza to take in its scale. People pass with quiet reverence, heads slightly lowered. Across the courtyard, a man kneels beside a small statue of Nabu, the god of wisdom and writing. He whispers a prayer, then presses his forehead to the ground. Around him, others do the same. There is no priest here, only the open air, the sound of sandals brushing against stone, and the slow rhythm of devotion. You begin to walk again, this time away from the main roads. In the narrower lanes, homes become more modest. Doors are open, letting air flow through. Inside, you catch glimpses of daily life. A woman grinding barley with a stone. A child chasing a chicken across the floor. A man adjusting a clay oil lamp. The rhythm of life in Babylon is steady and deliberate. No one rushes. A group of school children pass you, their hair braided, carrying wax tablets wrapped in cloth. Their teacher leads them with a short stick and soft commands. They move toward a garden area lined with palms where classes will begin in the shade. As you walk, you notice painted markings on the walls, prayers, protective symbols, names of gods. Each one belongs to a family, a household custom, a wish for peace or health or safety. The gods are everywhere, in the bricks, in the river, in the breeze that moves across the rooftops. You arrive at a quiet house near the city's edge. It belongs to a family of scribes. The courtyard is shaded by a fig tree, and a jar of water rests on a stone bench. The woman who greets you is kind, her voice soft. She offers a seat and a bowl of lentils. Inside, her husband works by lamplight, transcribing a tablet. Their son helps him, carefully forming signs with a wooden tool. The day continues in this rhythm. Quiet moments, steady labor, short conversations. You learn that the woman tends a shrine to Gula, goddess of healing. She shows you the small altar near her kitchen, decorated with poppies, garlic, and crushed herbs. She lights a wick soaked in oil and bows her head. Later, you leave the house and return to the center of the city. The sun is beginning to descend. The air has cooled. People begin to return home, gathering on rooftops or courtyards to rest. Children share figs. Men tell short stories. A boy plays a reed flute with uneven breath. You find yourself near the ziggurat again. This time, you begin to climb. The steps are long and shallow, worn by centuries of feet. At the top, the view opens. The city stretches in all directions: rooftops, canals, courtyards, temples. In the distance, the Euphrates glimmers under the fading light. You sit on the upper terrace, letting the wind press gently against your back. You feel stillness in your chest. Not emptiness, but calm. Marduk, Ishtar, Nabu, Gula, the gods of Babylon. Watch quietly from their shrines, from their symbols carved into walls and worn into bracelets. They are not loud gods. They don't shout. But they are always present. Night comes slowly. The sky turns deep blue, then black. Stars appear one by one. Below, the city dims, oil lamps flickering like low fires on a dark river. Somewhere, a temple bell sounds, a dog barks. Then silence again. You remain seated, watching, listening. breathing. You descend from the ziggurat as night settles fully across the land. The city is quieter now. The stone paths are less crowded and most shops have closed. Clay shutters are drawn over windows, and only the faint glow of oil lamps leaks from beneath wooden doors. The air is cooler. The heat of the day has faded into a soft, still breeze that carries the distant murmur of a temple hymn. You follow it instinctively. You make your way toward the Temple of Marduk, drawn by the steady tone of low voices chanting in unison. No. The priests are gathered near a pool of water surrounded by low walls. This pool, you are told, is sacred. Its water is not meant for washing, but for purification. You sit near the edge, your presence unnoticed or simply accepted. The chanting stops. A single priest steps forward and dips a reed into the water. He speaks a short invocation, his tone soft but deliberate. He sprinkles the water into the air with a wide gesture, as if casting a net of peace across the temple grounds. You feel droplets settle gently on your skin. They cool your forehead, your hands. The priest bows his head. The others do the same. You learn that this nightly ritual is meant to cleanse the space before dreams begin. To the Babylonians, sleep is not just rest. It is a doorway. The gods speak through dreams. They send visions, warnings, symbols. Sleep is sacred, and not every dream is safe. A priest approaches you and invites you to follow. You are taken to a side room lined with smooth stone benches and woven mats. There is no fire, only lanterns spaced evenly around the walls, casting soft shadows across the floor. The air smells faintly of cedar and something older, something like time itself. You lie down on one of the mats. It is not luxurious, but it is clean and carefully prepared. A pillow filled with reeds supports your head. Another priest enters, carrying a small tablet and a stylus. He speaks quietly, asking your name, the name of your parents, and your date of birth. He marks them into clay. This tablet, he explains, is your entry into the dream. You ask nothing. You simply nod. He leaves, and you are alone. The silence here is different. It is not emptiness. It is attention. You are being watched, not by people, but by something beyond the walls. You close your eyes. It begins slowly. First, a memory. Then something less familiar. You're walking through a field, and the stars above are closer than they should be. A figure stands in the distance, robed in white, holding a scroll. You approach, but cannot read its writing. You feel no fear, only a sense of being known. Then the dream shifts, the scroll vanishes, and you are floating above water, weightless and unhurried. You wake. It is still night, but you know time has passed. A different priest enters with warm water and a cloth. He sits beside you and begins asking questions in a gentle voice. Did you see animals? Were there rivers? Was there fire or writing or stranger? You answer slowly. He listens, then records your words on a fresh tablet. He tells you the dream was a visitation. The scroll means a message is being prepared for you. The stars mean divine attention. Floating means you are not anchored to fear. You nod again, not because you fully understand, but because it feels true. He places the tablet beside the first and covers both with a cloth. He leaves you to rest. You do not return to sleep, but your body is still. Your thoughts are soft. You listen to the faint rustle of papyrus hanging in the doorway. Later, as dawn approaches, you rise and leave the temple. The city is beginning to stir again. Rooftops glow with early light. You pass women grinding grain, men tying ropes around bundles of firewood, boys chasing birds from the edges of courtyards. Life begins again without urgency. You make your way to a small shrine near the canal. It is dedicated to Nanshe, goddess of dreams and justice. The shrine is not grand. It is no more than a square room with a single open window, but the offerings inside are fresh. Bowls of figs, a folded cloth, a carved figure of a fish. A man kneels silently. You sit beside him, and though you say nothing, you feel the goddess receives both moments as prayer. You remain for some time, eyes closed. You do not ask for anything. You simply sit in stillness, letting the morning wind move through the doorway. You leave when you are ready. As the sun climbs, the city returns to its rhythms, but you carry the night with you, its symbols, its silences, its watchers. You stop at a vendor selling amulets, small ones carved from clay, shaped like eyes or stars or birds. You choose one that looks like the moon. You tie it around your neck with a thin cord and feel its weight settle just above your heart. You ask the vendor what it means. He tells you that the moon is Nana, god of the night, that he watches the dreamers, that those who carry his sign are less likely to forget their dreams. You thank him and move on. Later, you return to the home of the scribe's family. The courtyard is quiet. A jug of water has been left out for guests. The woman invites you in. You sit near the kitchen, where she prepares lentils and garlic over a small flame. She asks if you dreamt. You say yes. She nods, as if that is the most natural thing in the world. She tells you that dreams are the language of the gods, and that to ignore them is to stop listening. She offers you a bowl and a place to rest. You eat slowly. The food is simple, but full of care. The boy from before is reading aloud from a tablet. The father is correcting him with gentle taps of the stylus. There is no urgency, only presence. You spend the afternoon quietly, observing the rhythm of the household. The mother arranges herbs into bundles and hangs them in the shade. The boy practices his writing. The father carves an amulet with a sharp tool. Occasionally, someone speaks, but mostly, the home is calm. As evening returns, you leave once more. The streets are filled with low conversation, the laughter of neighbors, the sound of someone playing a lyre on a rooftop. You find a quiet bench near the water and sit with your thoughts. The sky turns from gold to silver. Oil lamps flicker on. Children are called indoors. A temple bell rings once, then again. You watch the water move, slow, silent, carrying light like a ribbon. You think of the gods who never sleep, who speak through symbols, who sit in ziggurats and temples, but also in dreams and wind and silence. You think of the scroll, of the moon, of the weight around your neck. You let the thoughts pass. You listen to the city. You let it carry you, and you rest. The next morning begins not with sound, but with light. You wake slowly. The reed mat beneath you creaks as you shift your weight. The room around you is pale and quiet. A gentle gold light presses through the linen drape over the doorway. You sit up, stretch, and listen. The sounds of the city are beginning again. You step outside into the soft morning. The sun has barely lifted above the rooftops. Its rays fall at an angle, striking the tops of temple towers and illuminating the carved faces of animal statues that line the street. The air is fresh, cool. You inhale and taste clay dust, fig smoke, and the faint trace of something sweet, perhaps incense from a nearby shrine. You begin walking without a destination. Today's different. It is a holy day, one of many scattered across the lunar calendar. In Babylon, days were measured not by hours, but by the movement of the stars, the shape of the moon, and the gentle shift of tides. People did not speak of Tuesday or Friday, but of the position of the sun in the zodiac, the fullness of the moon, the tilt of Venus. You hear someone mention the rising of Ishtar. You look up, not expecting to see her, but knowing she is there. In Babylon, celestial bodies are gods. Venus is not simply a planet. It is the goddess Ishtar, moving across the sky with purpose. The moon is Nana. The sun is Shamash, each with their role, each watching, each guiding what happens below. You pass by a marketplace where most stalls are closed today. The vendors rest in the shade, some reading tablets, others cleaning baskets. A few families have gathered near the canal, setting out trays of dates and honey cakes. You learn that these are offerings, given in quiet gratitude for the new month, whose arrival was confirmed by the moon's position 2 nights earlier. You continue walking until you reach a public square. In the center stands a stone pillar carved with symbols, tiny wedges and lines pressed into stone, rows upon rows of cuneiform text. It is a calendar, or more accurately, a schedule of observations. Each line describes events from the sky: eclipses, conjunctions, sudden brightness, changes in color, each one tied to earthly consequences: rain, war, fertility, sickness, peace. You stand in front of it and run your fingers lightly over the cool surface. A man stands beside you, an elder. He speaks softly, pointing to a row near the bottom. He tells you the stars say this month will bring clarity, that messages once hidden will become known, that dreams will carry weight. You thank him. He bows his head and continues his reading. You walk on. You find your way to a school. Not a school as you know it, but a house with wide benches, scrolls stacked against the wall, and children sitting cross-legged on clay tiles. Their teacher draws symbols in the air with his finger, repeating them with care. The children echo him with even tones, like a chant. You pause and listen. The lesson today is not reading, it is interpretation. The teacher lists a series of signs: a snake in the doorway, an owl heard at night, a pot breaking during dinner. The students offer meanings, one after another. Their answers are calm and thoughtful. Not one of them laughs. In Babylon, omens are not superstition. They are communication. The world is not silent. It is speaking always. Later, the teacher invites you to speak. You describe your dream, the scroll, the stars, the silent figure in white. He listens and nods. He tells you it was a visitation, a message still unfolding. He suggests you write it down, not once, but 7 times, to see how the details change. You leave with that thought. Outside the school, a group of astrologers set up instruments on a high platform. Simple tools, plumb lines, clay tablets, sighting rods. But with these, they track the exact rise and fall of celestial bodies. You watch as one of them marks a line on a tablet. He calls out a name: Jupiter. You learn they have been watching Jupiter for weeks. Its brightness has increased, its motion has changed. They do not yet know what it means. But they will. They always do. You find a shady courtyard where scribes sit in circles, each copying down observations. One is writing the same line over and over. The day the moon eclipsed the sun, the king fasted. Another tablet describes a birth. Born under the sign of the lion, in the hour of Shamash, the child will speak in fire. You realize the stars are a map, not a guide to places, but to outcomes. They reveal patterns, offer probabilities. They do not control fate, but they show its path. You are given a tablet to carry, a simple one. It reads only this: today, Jupiter stands over the house of wisdom. Speak no lies. You don't question it. You place it in your satchel and carry it without burden. You walk past the temples again. Today, they are filled with offerings. baskets of bread, dried fish, small bowls of barley, pieces of gold thread, each one left in silence. Not for reward, but for balance. The people do not ask for favors. They offer what they can to maintain harmony between themselves and the divine. Inside the temple of Shamash, god of justice and sunlight, you watch a priest place a scroll beneath a ray of morning light. He speaks a prayer in a quiet tone. Then he steps away. The scroll remains. It will not be read until tomorrow when the light strikes the stone wall at the same angle. Everything here moves in time. Not the time of minutes, but the time of stars and shadows. Later you join a group gathering outside the Temple of Nabu. They carry tablets, questions offering. One woman holds a sealed pot containing dust from her hearth. She tells you it is for a ritual, asking clarity from the god of writing. A man beside her carries a bird's feather, tied with a strand of hair. He says he dreamt of wind. They enter the temple together, silent and barefoot. You do not follow. You wait outside, seated near a fountain. You look up at the sky. The stars are not visible yet, but you know where they are. You know Venus will appear just after the sun sets, and that Jupiter is rising earlier now, that the moon has begun its retreat. And with each movement, the day shifts, not in obvious ways, but in how people speak, how they dream, how they walk through their own lives. You rise slowly and walk back toward the home of the scribe's family. As you cross a quiet path near the river, you see a young girl gathering small stones. She arranges them in a circle, then places a leaf at the center. You ask her what she's making. She tells you it is a sign for her brother. She dreamt of rain, and he is leaving soon. She wants him to remember the sound of water. You nod. It makes perfect sense. Back at the house, the evening meal is nearly ready. The smell of roasted garlic and onion fills the air. The family greets you without surprise, as if they expected you to return. You sit, eat, and speak little. After the meal, the father takes out a tablet from earlier in the week. He reads slowly, the words clear and deliberate. It is not a story, it is a record. It says, "On the night of the third crescent, the dreamer saw a white figure holding a scroll. This is a sign of knowledge waiting. The stars were fixed, the sky was calm. The scroll is not yet open." He looks up at you. You say nothing. He nods and places the tablet back into its cloth. The stars appear as you step onto the rooftop. They arrive without noise, scattered across the sky like seeds. You lie down watching. You think of scrolls, stones, eclipses, names written in clay, and prayers carried by the wind. You think of how the gods speak, how they don't shout, how they wait for you to notice. You let your body grow still. You let the sky become your ceiling. You close your eyes, and you sleep. You wake to a gentle breeze and the low hum of morning life. Another day has begun in Babylon. The rooftop is warm beneath your back. Shadows stretch across the bricks in long, slanting lines. You sit up slowly and scan the sky. The sun is already climbing, and thin clouds drift past the ziggurat in the distance. You make your way down the narrow stairs where the family is already at work. The mother is arranging bundles of dried herbs. The boy grinds grain by hand. The father seals a tablet with a final mark before setting it on a shelf beside others. The house is quiet but active. You take a piece of flatbread and eat it while sitting under the shade of a fig tree in the courtyard. Today your steps are slower. Your thoughts are heavier, not sad but reflective. You've heard whispers in the street about a death that occurred the night before. A neighbor, an old man who lived 2 houses away. He passed in his sleep. In Babylon, death is not unexpected. It is not hidden. It is not feared as a stranger. It is simply a passage. You walk past his house, the door is open. A group of people sit outside in silence. A boy fetches water. A woman sweeps the path clean. Another sets out a bowl of dates near the doorway. You stop, offer a quiet bow, and continue walking. Further down the road, you reach the house of the dead, a place not for burial but for preparation. It is cool inside. Built with thick walls and no windows, the air is still. Clay jars line the perimeter, each labeled with small inscriptions. They contain oils, salts, fabrics, and thin brushes made from palm fibers. A priest meets you at the entrance. He says nothing but leads you down a short hallway. Inside, another priest washes the body, slowly, with care, with respect. The man who died is treated as if he were sleeping. The water is poured with precision. The cloth is folded with attention. There is no rush. You watch. He is wrapped in white linen. A small amulet is tied around his wrist. You recognize the symbol. It is the mark of Nergal, god of the underworld, a guardian, a guide. The amulet is not meant to protect the body. It is meant to protect the soul. Once prepared, the body is placed in a clay coffin, not deep but long enough to fit the figure without force. The priest closes the lid slowly and seals the edges with a line of soft clay. The family will carry it to a quiet burial site near the edge of the city, where others rest beneath fig trees and layers of earth. You ask if the soul leaves right away. The priest says no. It waits, watches, listens. He tells you that for 7 days the spirit lingers. It moves through the home. It waits near the door. It drinks the water left at its bedside. It listens to prayers. It observes whether it is remembered. You walk with him outside. He shows you the book of offerings, a list of items to be given to the soul each day. Bread, beer, salt, fire, oil, words, silence. If these things are given, the soul departs peacefully. If forgotten, the soul wanders. It does not torment, but it does not rest. You walk toward the burial fields later in the afternoon. The path is long and shaded by low trees. Others walk ahead of you, carrying simple offerings, jars of grain, folded cloth, a small carved figurine. One man carries a lamp. He says it is for the journey. At the site, shallow mounds dot the land, each marked with a stone. Some have names carved, others are blank. A few are surrounded by broken pottery or faded flowers. You walk among them slowly, letting your thoughts unfold one at a time. The burial is quiet. The family speaks short prayers. A priest pours oil into a small dish and lights it. The flame flickers, then steadies. The coffin is lowered. Earth is poured. The ritual ends without fanfare. No wailing, no loud declarations, only stillness. Afterward, you sit near a cluster of stones at the edge of the field. A boy draws shapes in the dust. He says his grandfather is buried nearby. You ask if he visits often. He shrugs. Then he says, "Only when I dream of him." In Babylon, dreams and death are connected. To dream of the dead is not a warning. It is a conversation. It is a moment of memory continuing. You are not haunted. You are visited. You return to the city as the sky begins to darken. The streets are quieter. Shops have closed early. A few households sit outside sharing figs and tea. You hear someone whisper a prayer under their breath. You hear another person hum a song with no words. You walk past the temple of Ereshkigal, queen of the underworld. It is smaller than the others with narrow doors and dark stone walls. People do not enter casually, but you pause at its steps. Inside, you hear low voices chanting softly. You stay outside. The priestess at the door tells you that Ereshkigal sees what others do not, that she holds what is too deep for words, that the underworld is not a place of fire, but a place of memory, of silence, of return. You thank her and move on. You pass a house with painted walls. A name is written above the door. You ask who it belongs to. The woman inside says the house once belonged to her father. He has been dead for years, but his name remains. She says to remove it would be to invite forgetting, and forgetting, she says, is the second death. You nod, and you understand. You reach the ziggurat again, just as stars begin to pierce the sky. You climb the steps slowly, with the rhythm of one who is not in a hurry. At the top, you sit and look out across the rooftops. The city glows with the soft light of oil lamps. The wind moves steadily between the streets. Somewhere, a priest rings a bell. Somewhere else, a boy recites a poem. You look at the stars. The moon is half lit. Venus is bright. You remember what the elder said, that each body in the sky is a god watching, not judging, just present. You think of the man who died. You think of the family who lit the lamp. You think of the amulet tied around his wrist. You think of your own sleep. You wonder who will watch your dreams tonight. You do not fear the question. You lie back, arms behind your head, gaze fixed on the stars. You let the sky hold you. You let memory carry you. You fall into rest. You rise the next morning with a sense of quiet weight in your chest. Not sadness, not heaviness, just awareness. As if you've carried something with you from the dream, something left over from sleep. You can't name it, but it follows you gently. You sit by the window of the home where you've been staying. The sun enters slowly, lighting the dust in the air. It catches the corner of a tablet shelf beside the door. There are many of them. Clay tablets, some small enough to fit in your hand, others wide and heavy. All of them marked with tight rows of symbols, wedge shapes, strokes, delicate lines pressed into wet earth and then dried under the sun. The words are not hidden, but you still cannot read them. The father of the household sits across from you. He picks up a tablet at random. His eyes scan it like water flowing over stones. He tells you it is a record of offerings. Another tablet, he says, is a debt ledger. Another contains part of an old myth. He holds it up as he speaks. He says this one tells the story of a storm. A god fell in love with a mortal woman, but his rage flooded the city when she chose another. The rain did not stop for 7 days. In the story, the woman weeps, and the god retreats to the sky ashamed. The flood disappears overnight. You ask why it was written down. He says everything is written. Stories, numbers, prayers, warnings, dreams. Words, he tells you, are how people live after they are gone. You walk with him to the scribe's workshop not far from the city center. The building is long and cool, built from mud brick and roofed with reeds. Inside, half a dozen people sit at low benches, shaping clay into tablets and marking each one before the surface dries. A teacher moves among them. He corrects hand positions, replaces styluses, answers short questions. The sound of clay being pressed is soft and rhythmic. You stand and watch. A young girl is copying a line over and over again. You ask what it says. She tells you it means what is remembered returns. You sit beside her and pick up a fresh piece of clay. The teacher shows you how to hold the stylus. Your hand moves slowly. The clay gives easily beneath your pressure. You mark a single symbol. You don't know what it means, but the act feels right, like placing a stone in the river and letting it stay there, part of the flow. You leave the workshop quietly. Later that day, you visit the temple of Nabu, god of wisdom and writing. His symbol is the stylus resting on a tablet. He is often shown seated, watching the world without speaking. His priests carry scrolls, not swords. Inside the temple, the floor is lined with old tablets, some centuries older than the city walls. No one walks across them. They are placed with intention, like stepping stones made of language. You follow a priest who invites you to the upper room. There he shows you a clay prism, each side covered in inscriptions. He says it's a record of omens observed over 12 years. Movements of stars, changes in wind, behaviors of birds, each one cataloged, measured, compared. It is not superstition, he tells you. It is data, interpretation, pattern. You ask if the predictions were ever wrong. He says yes, but the record still mattered. Even error, he says, is sacred if it is remembered. That night you find yourself walking along the canal. The moon is full. The sky is clear. The city glows in silence. You reach a stone bench where an older man sits with two boys. He reads aloud from a tablet while they listen, unmoving. His voice is soft, measured. You sit nearby, not to interrupt, but to join. The story he reads is not a myth. It is a description of a city that once stood near the river, older than Babylon, built of white stone and ruled by a king who never spoke. The king, he says, believed that words lost power when spoken too often. So he ruled through silence, through tablets, through signs made in the air. The story ends with a single line. His city fell, but his name remains. You walk home with those words in your mind. The next morning, you visit the tablet archive near the southern gate. A large hall, lined with shelves, open to the air. Inside are thousands of tablets, accounts, laws, letters, hymns. A boy guides you to a section reserved for dreams. Each tablet describes a vision. A woman dreaming of a black river. A man dreaming of a goat with silver eyes. A child dreaming of a flame that sang. Each tablet ends with a short line of interpretation. You sit and read slowly. One tablet reads, I dreamt of walking backward. The priest said I must revisit what I have ignored. Another says, the sun turned blue in my dream. They told me I had seen the soul of a traveler. You don't rush. You read them one at a time, letting the images fill your mind. When you leave, the wind has changed direction. A sign, perhaps, or just a shift in weather. As the sun sets again, you climb the ziggurat. You move slowly, one step at a time. At the top, the air is clear. The city feels distant now, less a place, more a memory. You look out at the land, the river, the stars beginning to wake. You think of the people who once walked these streets, people who shaped clay into tablets, people who watched the same stars, people who dreamed the same dreams. You think of how their voices still speak through symbols, through stories, through the simple act of being remembered. You lie down on the stone, the sky above you like an open book. You close your eyes and let the words return. You sleep. You wake to the sound of music. Not loud, not sudden, just a low, steady rhythm of drums echoing in the distance, softened by the thick morning air. You sit up, still wrapped in sleep. From the rooftop where you rest, you can already hear the murmur of the crowd rising below. Feet on stone, laughter, the occasional bell or chime. Something is different today. You move slowly through the morning light. The streets are already alive with motion. Flags of bright cloth hang from the rooftops. Vendors are arranging new displays. Women carry baskets of fruit and colored powder. Children run past, their faces already dusted with pigment, their feet bare and fast. A festival has begun. You stop at a corner near the Temple of Ishtar. A group of musicians play reed pipes and hand drums, not in unison, but in rhythm, each contributing their own line. Around them, people are gathering, offerings are being prepared. You follow the movement, pulled by something wordless. This is the Festival of Renewal, held after the full moon of the 9th month. It honors the turning of the season, the cycle of planting and harvest, the balance between chaos and order. It is not a loud festival, but a wide one. It stretches across the city, into every home, every temple, every courtyard. You step into the flow of it without effort. You walk past dancers painted in red and gold, their hands marked with charcoal, their robes embroidered with stars. They don't perform, they move. They walk among the people with quiet grace, and their steps seem to follow an invisible thread. At a small shrine, you stop and watch a priest light a line of lamps. He pours oil with care, then touches the wick with a small flame. The fire travels down the row slowly, one lamp at a time, until all are burning. He speaks a line. Let the darkness be shaped. You continue on. In a central courtyard, you find families laying out offerings. Not grand gifts, just tokens of thanks. A handful of grain, a piece of jewelry, a carved bird made from wood, a drawing scratched into clay by a child's hand. Each offering is placed before a tall figure made of woven reeds, shaped in the image of a guardian. The figure is burned at dusk, not to destroy it, but to complete the ritual, to send the offerings upward, to return them to the cycle. You ask someone why the figure is made of reeds. They say reeds bend in the wind. They survive storms. They grow again. That's the point. You pass a group of elders seated under a large tree. One of them tells a story while others listen. His voice is soft and his hands move gently. He speaks of a god who fell in love with a river. Every spring, he says, the river weeps with joy and the flowers bloom in response. That's why the rain comes, not because of the sky, but because of memory. You sit for a while and listen. Later, you walk past the Temple of Marduk. Today, the priests are silent. The doors are open, but no rituals are held. Instead, people walk through the temple freely. Some sit, some whisper prayers, some do nothing at all. You enter and let your footsteps echo through the stone. Inside, candles have been arranged in a spiral, not for light, but for movement. People walk the spiral slowly from the edge toward the center, one at a time. You join them. Each step brings you closer inward, not just in space, but in thought. The spiral turns, the flames flicker. You walk. At the center is a bowl of water, clear still, unmoving. You kneel before it, say nothing, and look into its surface. Your face reflects back at you, but not sharply. It ripples slightly with the motion of the air. You feel calm. You feel present. You rise and walk out, back through the spiral, slower than before. Outside, the city continues to hum with celebration. You pass through the market, now filled with bright cloths and new perfumes. The scent of cardamom and roasted nuts carries through the air. Traders from distant cities have brought beads, glass, wool, and rare oils. A man offers you a date, sweet and warm from the sun. You take it and continue walking. Near the edge of the city, a procession is forming. Not grand, not loud, just steady. A group of men and women walk barefoot, each carrying a small jar of water. They move toward the canal in a long, unbroken line. You join them without question. When you reach the water, each person kneels and pours their jar into the current. Not to give it away, but to return it. This is part of the ritual. To give back what was borrowed. You kneel and do the same. The water takes the offering with no resistance. It joins the flow. The sun is low now. Shadows stretch across the earth. The city glows with golden light. You return to the center. A large crowd has gathered near the temple of Nana, god of the moon. The priest climbs a short platform and raises a bowl of crushed silver powder. He scatters it into the wind. The powder floats, catches the light, disappears. He speaks. The gods do not speak in thunder. They speak in rhythm, in return, in repetition. You watch as children carry lanterns into the darkening streets, lighting the path for those still arriving. They move without instruction. Everyone knows what to do. At nightfall, the reed figure is brought into the courtyard. People form a wide circle around it. A woman steps forward and places a red cloth at its feet. A man pours oil down its back. Then a child touches the base with fire. The figure burns slowly. No one claps. No one cheers. They just watch. The flames rise, then settle. Smoke curls upward, slow and soft, until it disappears into the sky. You close your eyes for a moment, and you hear the wind. You hear a song, no melody, no words, just breath moving through people, through space, through time. You lie down on the warm stone and rest your head. The stars are above you, scattered and quiet. The gods watch, and you sleep. The next morning, you walk through Babylon with new eyes. Not because the city has changed, but because your attention has. You notice lines where you once saw shapes. You notice space where you once saw only stone. The city is not built for chance. It was shaped by purpose. You begin near the southern gate, where the walls rise high and even, made of baked brick and reinforced with towers at fixed intervals. You run your fingers along the stone and feel the smooth surface warm under the sun. Each brick is marked. A tiny stamp, barely visible, but it's there. You learn that the bricks used to build the city are signed with the name of the king. Thousands upon thousands of small symbols, all saying the same thing. Who built this, and why? You pass through the gate and into the wider road, the processional way. It is the path that leads to the Ishtar Gate and eventually to the ziggurat. The road is wide, laid with large stone slabs, carefully aligned. You walk along it slowly, letting the rhythm of your feet match the geometry. You stop at the Ishtar Gate. You've passed it before, but now you look longer. Blue glazed tiles cover the walls, deep and luminous like a still pool at dusk. Rows of lions and dragons face forward. Each is outlined in golden pigment, their bodies stretched mid-step. You count them, though you know you won't remember the number. You ask someone why the gate looks this way. They tell you it is not just decoration. The lions are symbols of protection. The bulls and dragons represent divine guardianship. The blue is the color of the sky, meant to reflect the heavens on earth. When you pass through, you are not simply entering the city. You are moving between worlds. You walk further into the city. From above, you're told, the city would look like a circle, bounded, ordered, enclosed. The canals divide it into sections, like arteries guiding the flow of water, people, and offering. The temples sit at points of balance, their placement determined by observation, by star charts, by ritual. You pass a house being rebuilt. Workers stack bricks along a measured line, each corner checked with a plumb, each beam aligned with the rising sun. Even small homes follow patterns, not because they must, but because they're meant to. The house, like the temple, echoes the heavens. You walk past the school again. The students are drawing maps in clay, not of the land, but of the sky. Star positions, lunar phases, movements tracked over years. A teacher tells you that the city's measurements are based on the heavens. That numbers are not just tools, they are reflections. A city, he says, is a mirror, not only of its people, but of what they believe. You continue your walk. In a quiet quarter near the river, you stop beside a water tower. Not tall, not grand, but functional. A system of clay pipes brings water from the Euphrates to homes and gardens. You trace a pipe along the wall and notice small holes drilled at even intervals. You ask someone what they're for. They say it lets the pressure release. Too much force and the system breaks. The balance must be preserved. You nod. It makes sense. The streets curve gently here, never sharp. Even the markets follow arcs. Spaces widen, then narrow. Movement slows without obstruction. The city guides you, not just with walls, but with mood. You reach the ziggurat again. From this angle, it looks even larger. Layer upon layer of stone and brick, rising in stages. A stairway climbs one side, long and steady, flanked by guardrails shaped from polished stone. You begin the ascent, one step at a time. Halfway up, you pause. The air is clearer. The sounds of the city have softened. You look out and see the rooftops like a tiled sea, interrupted by domes, towers, and trees. You climb again. At the top, the temple is smaller than you imagine. Just a single room, but its walls are thick, its ceiling high, and its floor is cool. There is no furniture, only an altar and a window facing east. You sit. The view from the window is narrow but deliberate. It aligns with the horizon where the sun rises on specific days. Not every day, just those that matter. Equinox, solstice. The festivals that mark turning points. You sit in silence and you feel the design in everything. Nothing here was placed by accident. Even the light moves with intent. You descend slowly. At the base, you walk to a nearby courtyard where a priest explains how the city center is not the ziggurat, but the balance between temple, canal, and gate. He draws a circle in the sand, then lines through it. He says each division represents a force: order, chaos, life, rest. None can overpower the others. You walk toward the residential quarters. You notice small altars built into doorways. Some are painted, others hold offerings. Each marks the boundary between inside and outside, sacred and lived, each a threshold. The city is full of thresholds. Each bridge, each arch, each stair. Not just a way forward, but a place to pause, to shift, to pass through with thought. You reach the canal and follow it west. The bridges are curved. Their supports made of thick stone and baked clay. You stop midway and look into the water. It moves steadily, but not fast. Below the surface, you see a reflection flicker. You listen. The city does not speak with volume. It speaks with repetition. Lines, circles, steps, flow. You continue walking. By afternoon, the city begins to quiet. The streets narrow again. People return to their homes. Children rest. Shops close. The market folds. You return to the home where you've been staying. Inside, the tablet shelf is now full. The boy has finished another story. The mother lights a lamp. The father records the time of day in a clay strip. Evening comes without announcement. You sit outside. The wind shifts again. And you sleep. By afternoon, the city begins to quiet. The streets narrow again. People return to their homes. Children rest. Shops close. The market folds. You return to the home where you've been staying. Inside, the tablet shelf is now full. The boy has finished another story. The mother lights the lamp. The father records the time of day in a clay strip. Outside, the light shifts. Shadows lengthen. The wind presses gently through the doorway. But you don't stay long. The father invites you to follow him to a nearby hall, one rarely open to guests. You cross a narrow footbridge, walk through a short alley, and enter a low building with thick walls and no windows. Inside is cool, quiet. It smells of dried ink and limestone dust. You realize it is a place of study. Stone benches line the edges. Clay shelves rise in layers along the walls. There are tablets everywhere, some stacked, some cradled in cloth, some laid flat in wide trays of sand. This is the house of learning. Not a school for children, but a sanctuary for scribes, healers, mathematicians, and stargazers, people who work not with crops or stone or trade, but with meaning, with systems. A man greets you. His robe is plain, his beard trimmed close, his voice soft. He welcomes you without ceremony and asks if you have come to observe or to learn. You tell him you're here to understand. He nods and leads you inside. You stop at a table where 3 men sit, reading a clay tablet marked with lines and circles. The elder among them explains that it's a lunar calendar, based not on names, but on intervals. The days are counted by phases, and each phase has its own qualities. Some are good for planting, others for decisions. A few are best left untouched. You move on to another station, where a woman grinds herbs using a flat stone. She speaks with another scribe who writes down measurements: half palm, 1 grain, a drop, a cut. She tells you she's preparing a treatment for tooth pain. Not a cure, but a cooling balm. She recites the ingredients aloud: crushed willow, fig paste, powdered lime, oil of date seed. She asks if you've had tooth pain before. You tell her yes. She nods, as if that alone explains your presence. She says the remedy will not silence the pain, but it may persuade it to leave. Nearby, a group of students surrounds a tall man who speaks with clarity. He holds a stylus like a pointer and draws shapes into soft clay. Circles, triangles, squares. He is teaching geometry, not for building, but for meaning. He tells them that the circle is perfection, the square is stability, the triangle is change. You linger. He asks a question you don't fully understand. One student answers, because the number 6 fits the sky. The teacher smiles. He doesn't say whether that is right or wrong. At another table, a priest writes numbers into columns. Each row describes the movement of a star. He explains that the stars are not only watched, they are predicted. Babylon has kept records for centuries. Some tablets describe events from ancestors long buried. He says the sky is a ledger, that every flicker has precedent. You ask if that means the future can be known. He says not exactly, but it can be heard ahead of time like thunder before the rain. You pause and repeat that in your mind. A thunder before the rain. You walk past a long corridor filled with jars, each labeled in cuneiform. A healer explains that each contains a compound. Some are poisons, others they're antidotes. Some can numb pain, others sharpen awareness. A few, he says, can make you dream more clearly. You ask if the dreams become true. He says no, but they become more precise. A child is seated at the end of the hall with a scribe who is helping him transcribe a hymn. The lines are short, repeating. Let the breath flow, let the hands remember, let the words not drift. The child speaks each word aloud as he presses them into clay. You return to the central chamber where a large table holds a map, but not of land. It is a star chart. Each cluster carefully marked, not just planets, but gods, not just stars, but messages. You ask the scribe who maintains it how long it took to make. He says the chart was not made. It was collected, piece by piece, dream by dream, mistake by mistake, a constellation of records rather than a drawing. You stay a while longer, watching the light shift on the surface of the clay. Eventually, the father who brought you here thanks the scribes and guides you out. The sky is pale again. Evening has arrived. But this time, it feels as if time itself has not passed, but unfolded, like a scroll slowly unrolling. You walk past a row of homes where women are boiling herbs over low fires. A girl stirs a pot with a wooden spoon, counting aloud. Her mother corrects her when she skips a number. You hear the rhythm of their work, steady and calm. You pass another courtyard where men sit reading tablets aloud. One recites a law, another quotes a hymn, another tells a dream. You don't need to understand the words to feel their shape. The words are not just read. They are rehearsed, preserved. At a shrine near the canal, you find a priest writing a line in chalk on the ground. He says it marks a boundary, a ritual space, a place for breath. You watch him finish the circle. Then you move on. You walk with the father again through the streets, both of you quiet. When you return to the home, the mother is placing plates on the floor, figs, lentils, flatbread, onions. She invites you to sit. You eat with the family, listening to the boy speak about the story he read. Something about a god hiding in the form of an animal. You don't know the ending, but that feels appropriate. After the meal, the family shares honeyed milk. The conversation drifts, and so does the light. The light fades slower in Babylon than in other places. Even as the sun dips below the rooftops and the temples, casts long shadows across the courtyards, the city continues to move. Not loudly, not hurriedly, but with certainty, as if night is not the end of something, but the beginning of something else. After the evening meal, you step outside and follow the edge of a narrow canal. The surface of the water catches the reflection of small torches and lamps placed at regular intervals. A breeze moves through the date palms. The sounds are different now. You don't hear merchants calling or children laughing. You hear sandals brushing over stone. You hear hushed conversations. You hear a flute in the distance, playing a song with no recognizable rhythm. You find yourself in the night market. It's not large, not like the daytime bazaars, but it's alive, lit by clay lanterns strung on ropes across the alleys, casting soft orange light that flickers as people move beneath it. Here the traders are different. Their wares are quiet things, scrolls, perfumes, small trinkets, folded cloth, dried flowers. One man sells charms meant to guard against nightmares. Another woman places painted stones into bowls of water to tell fortunes. You watch a scribe write names in wet clay for people who can't write their own. He works without speaking. The name is enough. You continue walking. The crowd is gentle, spaced. People walk slowly with no destination except the act of walking. Oh, you stop at a stall where incense burns in a shallow dish. The man tending it grinds herbs as he speaks. He tells you that some plants only give their scent at night. That light damages the oils. That healing is a moonbound practice. You buy a small sachet of herbs tied with string. You don't ask what it's for. You move toward the temple district again. The buildings are quieter now, but not empty. A priestess walks the perimeter of the temple of Ishtar, carrying a bowl of water in each hand. She tips a few drops onto the ground at each corner. A boundary ritual. You follow at a respectful distance. She finishes the final turn and sets the bowls down on the steps. She looks up at the sky and speaks a few words you can't hear. Then she turns and disappears inside. Across the street, an older man kneels by a wall, chalking symbols onto the stone. You've seen the marks before. Simple signs drawn quickly and erased with the rain. He tells you he does this every night, not for himself, but for the dreams of others. He says even those who forget their dreams still pass through the same gates. You ask him what the symbols mean. He says that they were here. You walk toward the edge of the city, where the walls meet the outer plain. A tower rises near the gate, part guard post, part observatory. A soldier waves you up the steps. At the top, two men sit beside a large copper dish filled with oil. They are not looking outward toward the desert. They are looking up. One of them points to a faint flicker above the horizon. He names it. Not a name you recognize. He says it's a watcher star, that it appears once every 26 nights, that tonight it arrives a little early, that it means change. You sit beside them. The oil in the dish ripples as the wind touches its surface. One of the men hands you a scroll. You unroll it. It's filled with diagrams, circles within circles, angles marked with notes. He tells you they've been watching the sky for most of their lives. The patterns always emerge, sometimes slow, sometimes sharp, but always there. You stay on the tower longer than you expect. The desert is dark beyond the walls, no firelight, no movement. Only stars reflected faintly in the sand. Back in the city, the streets are thinner now. The air is cooler. The lamps begin to run out of oil one by one. You pass by a doorway where a woman sits spinning thread by hand. Her wheel creaks softly. She doesn't look up. She says aloud to no one in particular, "The thread is pulled whether we know it or not." You turn a corner and find yourself near the river again. The canal flows quieter than before. Still, it moves. Two boys sit at the edge with a clay bowl, letting it drift and pulling it back with a reed. You ask what they're doing. They say they're practicing letting go. You stop for a moment, unsure whether they're serious. But then one of them adds, "If it floats, it was meant to." You walk past another shrine. Inside, candles burn in alcoves carved into the stone. You count them without meaning to. 17. Each flame flickers in its own rhythm. None are the same. You sit for a while on a stone bench beneath a carved lintel. Above you, an inscription wraps around the arch. You ask someone nearby what it means. He says, "Here, all directions become one." You don't ask for clarification. You rise and head toward the neighborhood of the scribes. Even at this hour, some doors are open. You see faint light through cloth curtains. Inside, men and women work by lamplight, pressing symbols into fresh clay, dipping reeds into ink, turning pages of palm leaf books. The work doesn't end because the sun is gone. Not all things belong to daylight. You turn into a smaller alley, unfamiliar but quiet. A cat watches you from a ledge. A dog sleeps in a patch of dust, unmoved by your presence. The wind smells faintly of ash and rose. You pass a house where someone plays a simple instrument, 4 strings, one hand plucking, one pressing. The song is not mournful, not cheerful, just slow. You find your way back to the home where you're staying. The door is slightly open. The mother is asleep. The father is writing something by lamplight. The boy sleeps with a tablet on his chest. The room glows with amber light and breathes slowly. You don't speak. You sit for a while on the floor, listening to the instrument in the distance fade into nothing. Somewhere a bell rings once, then again. Outside, the city hums in its lowest voice, still alive, still turning. And you remain part of it.